I know you're probably sick of all the Kendrick at the Super Bowl reactions and chatter, but just bear with me for a minute. You know I rarely steer you wrong. My reaction is to the reactions, and I think it's a pretty important one. Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl LIX halftime show was, as it was for any artist, a showcase of his talent. It doesn't matter if someone feels that rap music lacks talent or is an inferior art form. By definition, it's an art form. More accurately, rap music is a genre, one of several art forms within a larger culture, but I digress. The point is, it doesn't matter if any one person, if you, doesn't understand, doesn't like, or doesn't care for what they're seeing. Or as with the default response for many, they just don't understand what they're saying. It's an art form, regardless. I mean, when I watch Indian or Chinese or African or indigenous or any of countless cultural celebrations across the globe, they almost always incorporate song and dance. I don't understand what they're saying. Most Americans don't. And watching such expositions can be jarring. We don't speak the language. We're not familiar with the attire or the movements. We don't understand the significance of their outfits or their piercings on their face or their markings on their bodies. But as a supposed to be civilized Western civilization, reasonable people have learned to appreciate these displays, not as simplistic or worse, but as rich examples of the breadth and depth of human expression. So it's a bit odd when anyone in America, particularly white folks, continue to offer up such a mediocre critique of rap music. It's often accompanied, for some strange reason that I can't quite put my finger on, by a childlike imitation of muffled, incomprehensible verbalizations and grunting into an imaginary microphone.
What in the Sam Fudge is this dude even singing? I don't understand a fudging word is coming out of his mouth.
It's a classic mockery, second only to flailing about with devil hands salutes going, yo, 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 as if the Beastie Boys and Rocky Balboa had a baby baptized in a pool of stereotypical bigotry water. But I digress again. It's weird because, after all, it's literally the same language. It's been around for 50 years, and oddly, their children seem to have no problem understanding what they're saying. It's almost as it's being driven by something else. But in Kendrick's case, what he's actually saying is what a Pulitzer. I mean, are these folks under the impression that they give Pulitzer awards for muffled, incomprehensible verbalizations and grunting? The point is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you might think of rapping. The fact is that it sits aside other art forms and legacy organizations and institutions like the Grammys or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, academia, museums, etc. That means that collectively, society has deemed it to be an art form, as worthy of critique and praise and study and celebration as any other. And no, this isn't the time for the Grammys doesn't get it right or the hip-hop doesn't need the Grammys conversation. That's another topic. The fact is, there are many such art forms that any one of us might subjectively say aren't worthy of revered status. It doesn't matter. They exist, and they're worthy. In the same way, it doesn't matter how much any one of us might despise Zydeco or polka or Swedish death metal. Your personal feelings simply do not change what any of those things are. Same thing with rap. So deal with it. But Manny, I like rap. I respect it. Kendrick's show is just boring. Well, similarly, for the point that I'm leading up to, it doesn't matter at all what you thought about the halftime show, no matter who you are. Kendrick Lamar put forth an artistic, cultural, and political statement, a message-filled mashup highlighting select musical creations from his catalog, delivering a nod to his most recent zeitgeist-rattling mic drop, with a subversive critique of the very platform he was appearing on and the politics of the country that props it up. It doesn't matter if you didn't recognize any of that, and it doesn't matter if you did, but weren't impressed. In the same way many only see Lamar's monster hit song Not Like Us as a diss record, and it was, many don't recognize or want to recognize that within it was also a larger critique of social and cultural conflicts. It doesn't matter. There's simply no denying that it was there. The only objectively important point is, again, Kendrick Lamar put forth an artistic, cultural, and political statement, a message-filled mashup highlighting select musical creations from his catalog, delivering a nod to his most recent zeitgeist-rattling mic drop, with a subversive critique of the very platform he was appearing on and the politics of the country that props it up. It was too subtle. It was too much. It was hypocritical. It wasn't effective. It's divisive. All subjective. None of those opinions remove the fact that he did that. It does matter a little that Kendrick walks a line between activism and hypocrisy. I'll grant you that, though some would say that's just the dichotomy balls that a modern protest artist simply has to juggle. But it doesn't really matter that by agreeing to perform for the Super Bowl, some might feel that in of itself, it's a selling out. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if one thinks that it wasn't flashy enough. It doesn't matter if one thinks there should have been more guests or more hits or less dense material, more entertainment even. It doesn't matter if one thinks the messaging should have been less subtle, more in your face, easier to understand. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what I think. None of it changes the fact that, again, Kendrick Lamar put forth an artistic, cultural, and political statement, a message-filled mashup highlighting select musical creations from his catalog, delivering a nod to his most recent zeitgeist-rattling mic drop, with a subversive critique of the very platform he was appearing on and the politics of the country that props it up. The question is, knowing that, what are we gonna do next? Some folks think that all the social and mainstream media talk was too much, too many think pieces, too many really bad takes. It doesn't matter. You sense a theme here? It doesn't matter. In 2025, humans love a good reaction, and 2025 humans love making other 2025 humans react, especially for clicks and likes. And 2025 humans keep engaging in it, so it's just the way it is. My message is less inflammatory. It's less exciting. It's less sexy, though for the record, I am plenty sexy. It doesn't matter if the message wasn't strong enough for your liking. What matters is that we parlay these discussions about Kendrick into other ways to spread messaging through art. After all, with institutions like the Kennedy Center now under control of wannabe fascists, Super Bowl LIX might have been one of the last opportunities ever to effectively place protest artivism in front of the American masses. But damn it, despite what every old head Facebook hip-hop pundit thinks, the interest for conscious political social commentary hip-hop lives on. Just look at all the people who loved the performance, who thought it was brilliantly subversive. The hope of hip-hop as a force for social innovation survives, despite the belief of millions that the power of hip-hop to be used as a critique or to fight the powers that be or uplift the lives and livelihoods of its cultural citizens has been a lost cause, further crushed no doubt by recent antics of folks like Snoop and Nelly. But, as I argue in my forthcoming book, that's terribly wrong thinking. In fact, through all of my work, I argue that hip-hop's been doing incredible work as a tool for social justice. It's just that because hip-hop's capitalistic umbrella is so wide and overwhelming, these things often get lost in the shadows. More on that book, by the way, in an upcoming video. For now, we must not ignore that Sunday, millions of hip-hop lovers became reinvigorated. Maybe not as much as any one person might have liked, but definitely not insignificantly. So we can argue about how subtle or strong or hypocritical or effective the message might have been. Or we can take that energy and share the work of artists and organizations and extremely handsome and brilliant podcast and YouTube hosts and gather them up along with members of the general population who have been preaching this gospel already and or by now feel reinvigorated and are seeking their tribe. It all circles back to a concept I've been teasing out from time to time, that hip-hop has been desperately trying to get us to recognize that while music is still at the core of its DNA, music's no longer the most powerful tool in its arsenal for fighting white supremacy and other powerful forces that ironically created it and then allowed it to thrive, but then co-opted it and insidiously derailed it from becoming the political America-saving force that I and many others believe it can be. Now, the music, the protest songs, these viral spectacles, the performances, none of these are supposed to be one and done. I think Kendrick understands this. His show was a conjuncture of contemplative storylines coalescing on the least likely and maybe most effective stage in the world. The question is, now that this particular viral spectacle is starting to fade from our short-term collective consciousness, what is our role now? Should we continue to take to the social media streets to just endlessly debate each other about the subjective parts of these things that don't matter? Or should we focus on building on these cultural movements? For instance, I would really hope that if you're a teacher, an educator, a school counselor, or a parent, or in any position of authority over young people, you took this Super Bowl thing as an opportunity to discuss the important subtext of the performance, many of them which tie into your current curriculum. Now, only you have a gift of a much more relevant and timely entry point. It's something you can use to meet students and young people where they are. So I hope you use that opportunity, and definitely not the way that I literally watched one teacher bring up the performance with that childlike imitation of muffled, incomprehensible verbalizations and grunting into an imaginary microphone in front of a classroom full of young students. Because as progressive thinking educators have learned long ago, hip-hop delivers the magic of intergenerational and multicultural common ground. And politically, this is just as important. I mean, if you represent a leftist or democratic or progressive political operation, and you don't recognize the vital importance of spending time and energy analyzing Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl and how it relates to political engagement, I would respectfully suggest you reach out. We need to talk. Why? Well, I don't want to veer off too much, but I do a little work in the progressive media world. There's an ongoing battle in the world of democratic and progressive politics and left-leaning activism circles about how best to engage folks, young and old, across all demographics, about some of the most pressing issues of our time. There's concerns about messaging, how woke is too woke, the use of pop culture, the taking of certain communities for granted, way too elderly politicians, go left, swing right, watch the generation gap, free Palestine, lift up a third party, empower the progressive arm of the existing party, burn it all down. It's a mess. But I would posit that the most watched Super Bowl halftime performance in history holds a key if, and that's a big if, folks are really honest about their desire to open new doors with it. So please, let's not be tired of talking about what we saw at halftime. Let's use it. Start conversations about who and what can help us build off of it. If the message wasn't strong enough for you, or if you feel the message was powerful but needs follow-up action, gather with other folks who feel the same and talk about it. Find your tribe and start focusing on things that do matter. And as a reminder, I've set up a Discord server for exactly this sort of conversation. So now that the dust has settled and we all got our opinions out on all the social media platforms for all the AI systems to learn from, let's remember what we know to be true. A rap artist today in 2025 can absolutely still spark an artistic, cultural, and political statement, a message-filled, subversive critique of the very platform he was appearing on and the politics of the country that props it up. And also, we must help the millions inspired by what transpired become activated and engaged, and not be dismissive of that energy because any one of us might have thought that it was boring. Now, one of the most discouraging parts about watching the reactions was potentially the most encouraging. So many who immediately spewed dismissive, knee-jerk reactions caught hella backlash. After seeing more than a few, and including some surprisingly from respected hip-hop culture keepers, and others, unsurprisingly, from those less connected to the culture, I posted the following to Facebook. I said, my opinion is not really any more important than anyone else's. However, I am a student, an advocate, and humble servant for the nuances in hip-hop. And I'm a little surprised at the folks who, I think, wanted to enjoy Kendrick's halftime performance, but for whatever reasons, were underwhelmed. I wonder if we all might be served better if we took a moment and reflected on something before being so dismissive. Think of it this way. If you're right, and it wasn't symbolic enough, black enough, hip-hop enough, revolutionary enough, entertaining enough, then okay, maybe your suspicions might be correct. But if there was some symbolism that you might have missed, or there are reactions by people that saw something else in a performance that may have evoked a sense of pride, an appreciation for the art of it all, a rebellious energy very much needed right now, or inspiration to keep fighting the good fight, all reactions that I certainly also saw, but you're out here immediately dismissing the performance as inconsequential, suggesting or implying that these folks might have been duped, I'm not sure that helps the cause. And it was really disheartening to see so many academics and activists and allies be so immediately dismissive of something that we saw giving life to so many people. And I was reluctantly encouraged by some of them, at least, updating their takes, giving respect to those who pushed back, and demonstrated that with just a few moments of reflection or by listening to the perspectives of others, a greater understanding can prevail. Now, I don't expect those who most needed to heed these lessons will have been won over. But what I'm hoping for is that more of us will realize that it's perfectly fine to give our opinions. But if we're to truly come together to help hip-hop, our beloved art and culture, help us all, it doesn't really matter what we think. It matters what we do.
Manny Faces. You sick for this one. Sick for this one. Sick for this one.